and as dew on the grass they will lie. For I will proclaim the name of Yahweh and tell of what rightly is His. For His works are faithful, His words are true. Ki la'olam chasdo, ki tov le'adov la'Yahweh Eloheinu, ki tov le'adov Yahweh. Give thanks to Yahweh, for it is good to give thanks to our God, Yahweh. Though with their own eyes His works they did see, they chose not to follow His lead. His face He has hid from them and from us, to see what we do with our lives. Shuvah Yahweh Ad Matai, Anashva Yahweh. Come back, Yahweh, how long must we wait? We beg you, come back, Yahweh. Ki tov le'adov la'Yahweh Eloheinu, ki tov le'adov Yahweh. Give thanks to Yahweh, for it is good to give thanks to our God, Yahweh. Ki tov le'adov la'Yahweh Eloheinu, ki tov le'adov Yahweh. Give thanks to Yahweh, for it is good to give thanks to our God, Yahweh. Give thanks to our God, Yahweh.
Yep. Ready? Mm-hmm. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back, everyone. We just had a wonderful lunch thanks to Sherry. And Sherry just told me that Mark gets to take the leftovers, which, I mean, I love Mark, but, I mean, he really.
Why'd your countenance fall?
No.
No, but it really was good.
It was white bean and kale soup, y'all.
White bean and kale soup. Man, that was
With some
good.
faux sausage. in it.
Yeah, with the vegetarian, yeah,
It wasn't possible.
beyond meat.
Yeah, very good.
Beyond
So
sausage.
be careful when you invite Mark over. It's like when he plays dreidel, he takes everything.
Yeah, that's right. So today, we, based on the Torah reading, jumped right back into the tribes. And it's probably one of my favorite subjects, and I think prophetically you can't find a subject that there's more material on than this particular subject. So
And I don't care how many times I hear it, I hear something new. And I
Yeah.
heard something new today.
what'd you hear today?
And it actually showed up in my life.
Okay.
The example. Okay, so we have two dogs. One is old. He's almost blind and deaf. So I get up at 5:30 this morning to let him out. I have to watch him because if he goes too close to the road, I have to go get him. So it's dark still, and I can't see him. But I know if I whistle,
Yeah.
he can hear that whistle.
Uh-huh.
And I watched him, and I had to keep whistling for him, and it just spoke to my heart. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's like, okay, so even if it is, like you said, that Jehovah whistles in a soft, still way
Yeah.
to us, he's looking out. He loves us. He's like, I love that old dog.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I want him to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it really spoke to me about, I got that picture.
Yeah.
I really did get that picture.
Yeah, it's a very interesting passage in Zechariah 10. And it's somehow relates how God is going to call back his people. And we have to wonder, what does that look like in real time? I think if we look around, you might be able to see sort of a picture of that. I think it's happening now to some degree.
Well, the thing that talked to me is that he will whistle to us in a way that we can hear and understand. Like he'll make it known to us.
Yeah.
Like
Have
he
you ever-
knows us. Like I know old Toby, and no offense to your son.
Yeah, different.
Have you
time.
ever looked up that word? Well, I think we've talked about this before. The whistle, is it like a subtle sound? Or I can't remember. We talked about this in the past a little bit. I can't quite recall.
I'll look it up in the
Yeah,
Hebrew and
yeah.
see. Yeah, I'll pull it up in just a
We have
minute.
extra
and see.
chairs.
But up until about very recently, I didn't know Sherry could whistle that loud.
Yeah.
You know, one of these things.
Oh,
you
she
know,
can do it.
Man,
I didn't know she could do that.
When I was
She'd never-
14, I practiced all summer.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, but
I remember
fairly
practicing all
recently,
summer.
she like did that. And I'm like, what? I can't whistle. That's about it.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
sure you would. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you get it. In other words, not that way.
Yeah.
What I said was, I'm not sure we get it.
Yeah.
In that, how long from the time, Ross?
what's
You
that?
probably know to the day, but how long from the time that Joseph was sold into slavery till things started, God started giving him advice or what to do or dream analysis or whatever. Several years, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Abraham, from the first time that God spoke to Abraham, how many decades was it?
Yeah,
till
we're
the next
talking
time?
20 years. It's 25 years from the time he leaves.
So with the whistling thing, there was something else that you said about for Joseph. He's going to punish them and heal them in the land in which they're living, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, everybody's mindset, normal human is like, okay, well, that's going to be like about 3:30, and then by 3:35, everything's going to be taken care of. I don't know, bringing people out of idolatry. And what is idolatry? Idolatry is not just, praying to a stick or a statue. It's those things that you put before God. Those idols. Could be cigarettes, could be booze.
Well,
could be all
I
kinds
hear
of
that a lot, but I think in this case, it really is talking about idolatrous forms of worship, and it's clear that these are bad things that people are praying to and serving and
Putting their faith
yeah,
in.
Put their
yeah,
faith
it's
in.
false gods.
And
It's
so
false
the
gods.
And or
It
spend a
could
lot of
take-
time with. I mean, that's another.
It could take years
Yeah.
for somebody to get transformed. It might not be overnight.
Yeah, just to kind of pick up on that. By the way, the word is whistle. It's esracha is the word that's used there, and I think if memory serves me right, in Isaiah 5. Let me check the Hebrew and make sure it's the same word. Yeah. Okay, look at Isaiah 5. Now, this is talking about the same concepts. But look at verse 25, chapter 5, Isaiah. Therefore, the anger of Jehovah burns against his people, and he has stretched out his hand against them and smitten them, and the hills did tremble, and their dead bodies were as refuse in the midst of the streets. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And he will lift up a banner to the nations from far, and will whistle to them from the ends of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed swiftly, none shall be weary or stumble among them, none shall slumber or sleep, neither shall the girdle of their loins be loosed, nor the latch of their shoes be broken, whose arrows are swift, their bows bent, their horses' hooves shall be counted like flint, their wheels like the whirlwind, and so forth and so on. And in that day they shall roar against them like the roaring of the sea, and if one look to the land, behold, so forth and so on. So this idea of lifting the banner, which is a big concept that we find in Isaiah 11, very popular messianic passage, talks about the banner being lifted. So there are these signs and wonders that take place leading to the redemption, the latter-day redemption. But there is this calling, particularly in Zechariah 10, where he reaches to them from their place of dispersion. So I think that's really important. So, but yeah, it does. It's sort of a call. He's calling his people back. Now, what does that look like? People can say, well, is it like, you whistle like this, or I don't know. But the image is that he's waking them up. He's getting their attention. How's he getting their attention? Through sound and sight. So they see the banner lifted. They hear the sound of this whistling and so forth.
So by then, though, he's already done everything with Joseph, and he's ready to call him back to the land.
Say that again. He what now?
So by then, he's already done everything with Joseph, with the people of Joseph, in the land that they are in, wherever that land is.
Yeah.
And so at that point, they're like on the ready. I mean, they're already Joseph.
You mean
They're
they
not confused
identify?
yeah, they're not confused anymore or anything like that. And so then it's basically, in the old Irish, come hither,
Yeah.
and it's like lightning, everybody goes.
Yeah, there seems to be an awareness that takes place, but let me add one detail. There also seems to be a not so certainty. Let me show you. Look at Jeremiah chapter 50. Jeremiah chapter 50, and this describes also the return. Okay, so if you look at chapter 50, let me see where to start. Verse 4. In those days and in that time, says Jehovah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Judah, together, going and weeping. See this concept of them weeping. You know, there's this repentant, and it says they will go and seek Jehovah their God. They're going to ask the way to Zion with their faces towards it, saying, come, let us join ourselves to Jehovah in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. And then there's a white space. And then the next words are, my people have been lost sheep. So the idea is that they're scattered. They begin to make their way back. And it says they're going to go, they're going to come, they're going to ask the way to Zion, but it says their faces are turned toward it. So it'd be like me sitting here now, and you're all looking at me, and I go, hey, where's John? I'm looking at John. You'd go, he's right there, Ross. You're looking at him. So it says their faces are turned towards Zion, and they're saying, where is Zion? So what this tells me is that Jehovah is orienting people, calling them back. Almost, it's like you know it and you don't know it. You're going in the right way because you're following the noise. You're being directed, but you don't know for sure. So you kind of know you don't. You see my point? It's I know, but I have a knowing, but I don't know every detail of it. And that's what's so powerful about all these texts is the cleanup process begins in the dispersion when they're scattered. And that's pretty amazing. You know, it's like he doesn't get them to the land and before he starts the work. He begins in the dispersion, and then that in turn causes them to turn towards him more, and there's a meeting in the middle.
In fact, and the point you brought out about the key, what brings the two sticks together? It's the love of the Father. It's like, you know, when in Christianity it was all about Jesus. You didn't even talk about the Father. I
But
mean,
he
very
did.
rarely. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
ironically,
oh,
he did.
definitely he did. So that when that understanding and that final, you know, the lost tribes see that it's the Father, Jehovah alone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's really,
And we're seeing it,
Yeah,
Ross.
I
That's
know.
what's exciting. We're seeing it.
yeah, and it's going to get more and more prevalent, I believe, is that more people are waking up. They're coming to themselves, as Deuteronomy 30. When you return to your heart, something happens. They're dispersed to the farthest ends of heaven. They've lost their identity. They no longer know who they are. And that return process begins. Isaiah 44 is another example. If you go to Isaiah 44, verse 1, yet hear now, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I've chosen, says Jehovah that made you and formed you from the womb, who will help you. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and you, Yeshurun, whom I've chosen. For I will pour water upon the thirsty land and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon your seed and my blessing upon your offspring, and they shall spring up as among the grass, as willows by the watercourse. And one will say, I am Jehovah's, and another shall call himself by the name of Yaakov. And another shall subscribe with his hand to Jehovah, and surname himself by the name of Israel. Now this, see, a lot of people don't read and study the prophets well enough to make the associations. But what we read here is similar to the dry bones in Ezekiel 37. Notice there's dryness. They come together. Then it says, I'll pour my spirit on them, which here you've got, and I'll pour water upon the dry land. And then it says very clearly, where it says in verse 3, I'll pour water on the thirsty land, floods on the dry land. And then it says, I'll pour my spirit on your seed. That's a way that Hebrew, in other words, you compare, if you were to draw a diagram, water on dry ground is spirit on your seed, right? And so the two go together. And what begins to happen is these people come to themselves. Now, remember in Ezekiel 37, the dry bones, first question is, what can they live? And then once they come together, they look like something, but they're not alive. You know why? Because there's no spirit in them. So what I see today, and this is just my view, is that there has begun a coming together. It's already started. People are coming together. The bones are back together. There's muscle and flesh, but it's just lifeless in some ways. You might go, well, I don't know who you're calling lifeless. I have the Spirit. This is not meant to be insulting. This is to say, in the fullness that's described here.
Right.
We're not there yet.
I could see that visually. I know the sticks are just an illustration, but I've seen, gum sticks, some other types of species of sticks. You cut them into sticks and lay them on the ground. They look dead, but they will sprout back. Some of them will. They'll grow a sprout. At that point, you can say there's spirit in that stick. There's
still
life in that stick.
Yeah.
In that stick. I'm just saying. And I think there's even a story in the Bible about a stick that sprouted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, in
Yeah,
Isaiah, it
the
talks
almond-
about the
almond
stump
branch.
growing,
That,
sprouts
I'm
shall
talking
come
about
forth.
just a staff that.
Oh,
sprouts.
yeah.
It buds out.
Aaron's.
It buds out. Yeah.
Could this be what Virginia Townsend's talking about? This one calls that says, "I'm the Lord's," and the different names. Many might not know they are from the lost tribes, and that's a given. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people say, "I don't know if I'm."
Well, people scoff at this,
Yeah.
and like I've
Sure.
often said, look, if you're a Hittite or a Canaanite, there's room for
Yeah.
all of us. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But the prophets declare that this group who have lost their identity and think of themselves as non-Jews, because they only know of two options: Gentile and Jew. So they go, well, I wasn't born Jewish. There's no Jewish
Right.
genealogy.
Right.
I'm not Jewish. Okay. But there's another group. The Bible describes this is a group who thinks they're not Israel. They're non-Jews. They're
Yeah.
Gentiles as far as they know. And they begin to come. Now look, that's what it says here. Why, if this is Israel and they know they're Israel, it's no big deal that one calls himself, I'm Jacob, I'm Israel.
Yeah,
Well, that's what it's saying.
And at that point, it doesn't really matter if your mother was Jewish or your father was Jewish or you have Jewish lineage, so to speak. If you're his people, you're of that.
Yeah.
I hesitate to say Jewish because there's a difference there in my mind anyway. There's a separation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that to me the right term would be, I wasn't God's people. I am God's people.
That's
It's to
exactly.
be counted as one of
That-
God's
and
people.
that goes with the names of the children.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
my people.
Miriam asked, is there scripture as to why it seems that Benjamin chose to follow Judah instead of Joseph, his brother? When the tribes are given their inheritance, their land, the placement of Benjamin is located next to Judah, their apportionment of the land. So you basically have part of Benjamin there. And so because of the proximity, those two are often together. They just end up in that particular arrangement.
And the Levites
Now remember,
also.
you have Joseph is represented, Rachel's boys are represented by Benjamin and Joseph, obviously. But Joseph has these two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and they represent the dominant tribe of the 10 tribes. And they end up with a larger portion of land because some dwelled on the west side of the Jordan Rift.
That's right.
And the half tribe of Manasseh is on the east side, right? So you've got a large swath of land, which Zechariah tells us when this group comes back, the land is not going to be big enough to contain them.
Right.
I mean, they're going to spill
People are
over.
gonna have to move out of our place.
Excuse me.
And I'm not sure it's correct to say Benjamin chose to follow Judah. I think it's like, just like you said, that they were just proximally
Yeah.
together and so on and so forth. Same with the Levites. They, you know, a lot of them.
Yeah, the
say that.
Levites are scattered around
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Judah might have been protective of Rachel's children after they lost Joseph. He wanted to make sure there
Yeah,
wasn't nothing gonna happen
yeah.
to Benjamin, so we're gonna take him under our wing.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
And to that point, it's a really good point because remember in the story, I didn't get into it this time, but I've covered it in previous classes. You know, you go through these stories, only so many stories in the Bible, right? So
Right.
you have to cover them a few times, right, Dave? But
You never know what you're gonna get.
But the thing about Benjamin, when Joseph puts together the scenario where he tells the boys, go get Benjamin, bring this younger brother, you say. Remember, he's still playing the Egyptian part.
Right.
Bring him here. Well, when the boys go back and they tell Jacob, look, we've got to bring Benjamin, he said, and by the way, Simeon's locked up now. Jacob is like, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'm not being disrespectful, but it's almost this stern. It's almost like Jacob said, you guys, why did you even mention that you had another brother? What would you do that? I've already lost Joseph. And now you're gonna volunteer that you have another brother? What are you thinking?
What's the matter with you?
And Reuben says, look, let me bring him. I'll make sure I take care of him. And Jacob, I can picture Jacob saying, you got to be kidding. I can't trust you with my women. I'm not going to trust you with my boy. No way. So, but Judah then steps up to his dad. Now, I brought this up before because I think it's a very important point. Judah's lost 3 boys.
Right.
He knows loss. And he tells his father, I promise you, I'll take care of him because he and his dad have bonded. His dad has lost a child, seemingly in losing Joseph. Only Benjamin, as far as we know from the narrative, has experienced that painful loss. Some of the people listening today have experienced the loss of a child. Those who haven't can't understand
Right.
it. You don't
Impossible.
want to be part of that group. But those who have relate. So Jacob relates to Judah because he knows that Judah knows how important it is that he take care of him. So to your point, Judah assumes that role of I'll take care of baby Benji.
Right.
And that's what he does.
Yeah.
But they do end up together, and that's
And
interesting.
protective.
Yep. Very interesting.
So I got a scholarly question
Uh-oh.
or an
Alright.
academic question that you
trouble
brought
now.
up. No, see, I don't understand it. You said in Jeremiah 30
Yep.
that this is part of a separate scroll. Could
Yep.
you give me a little bit of the history of what is it? The whole entire chapter of Jeremiah
No,
30?
it's
What
that
is it?
class I taught. I
Okay.
taught a class, and I'll go through and publish those notes again
Okay.
as a link. But within the scroll of Jeremiah, there are several prophecies which I show make up what I call a new covenant scroll,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
covers
and I
certain
have.
sections.
Okay.
But it's in like Jeremiah 30, 31, and so forth. So, but I can show that is absolutely a scroll
Wow.
within the larger work. And I want to take that and put it into an article because I think it's a pretty
Yeah, I would.
pretty
I
good
think so.
find. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I don't remember. I can't remember all your wonderful teachings.
No.
I'm sure I have some notes.
Well, you got to put it with me. You got to put it with me 6 days out of the week. I mean, come on.
There
Give you a
goes my
break.
memory.
No,
Thanks,
but
Blaze.
this scroll, though, Jeremiah, particularly when you read, like I love Deuteronomy and Jeremiah both. Those are my 2 favorite. If somebody told me you can only take 2 books with you and the Bible, totally, you can't bring the whole Bible, I would bring Deuteronomy and Jeremiah because they go hand in hand. And there's a reason for that. That's part of the book that I'm working on. But there's a reason for it. And there is so much within these two books that talk about the ultimate redemption that God is bringing about. And the tribes and their restoration. Look, a lot of people, some people believe that the tribes, the northern tribes, in fact, some of the great sages at times said, look, they're never going to return. And, you know, we can look back and be critical of that view, but they get their view from certain texts which seem that it's in such a state of degradation, there's no remedy. You know, it's like they're gone, they're gone. Some believe that all who were going to come back joined with Judah thousands of years ago, and it's a done deal now. But context of some of these passages indicates that they, the scattered ones, are still scattered, still not knowing who they are, and that ultimately they'll be brought back. So I think it's very much, it's important for us to study this.
Well, I think for humans, never is something that they can't grasp, but usually throw that word out.
What's
Never,
that?
never and always is a timeline that most humans can't grasp. It just, when you say it's never gonna happen, well, how long are you gonna live? You're
Yeah.
not gonna be around 1,000 years from now to see it come true, you know, how do you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
when God says always and never, you probably take that to the bank.
Right. That's right. Yeah, time is immaterial when it comes to God, but
It's like I say,
It's always now, huh?
it's kind of
It's always now to
that's
God.
right. That's right.
Yeah, be here now.
from our perspective. Yeah.
Look with me. I mean, there are so many passages. Remember, there are a number of probably more than 40 sections of text. But look at Ezekiel 36. And go to verse 22 at the white space. Now, there are more. I'm just picking up here. In other words, I could back up and pick up previous, but listen to this. 36 of Ezekiel, verse 22. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, thus says Adonai Jehovah. Yep, that's right. I do not do this for your sake, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which you profaned among the nations to which you came. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the nations, which you profaned in the midst of them, and the nations will know that I am Jehovah, says Adonai Jehovah, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes. Now, how's that going to happen? Here it goes, verse 24. For I will take you from among the nations and gather you out of all countries and bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean. For all your uncleanness and from all your idols I will cleanse you. A new heart also I will give you, and a new spirit I'll put within you. I'll take away the stony heart out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And I'll put my spirit within you and cause you to follow my statutes. You'll keep my judgments and do them, and you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. And you shall be my people, and I'll be your God. And I'll save you from all your uncleanness, and I will summon the corn and make it abundant, lay no famine upon you, and I'll make the fruit of the tree, the increase of the field abundant, that you shall receive no longer the reproach of famine among the nations. And it goes on. So this idea of reaching them and bringing them out is very, very much a part of the prophetic scenario. It's like everything is about
I
this.
like this translation of verse 23 when he says, I will sanctify my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, among whom you have caused it to be profaned. And the nations shall know that I am the Lord, declares the Lord God, when I manifest my holiness before their eyes through you.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, this whole thing, like you said, it's like he's going to manifest something through us, through those who love it. It's the
Yeah.
heart.
It
It
is
comes
the heart.
back to the heart.
Yeah.
The laws are going to be on the heart. You're going to want to do them because you're motivated through love, love of the Father. And
Yeah.
that's so where, then I'm saying, how do I get this love for you, Father? How do I get this love for you?
Yeah.
I want to have that passionate love for Jehovah alone. And I feel so many times frustrated that I just don't love you enough. I need your help. I need you to do something within me to cause that great love.
When it comes both ways, it's you remember Zechariah 1:3 and Malachi 3:7. Draw unto me and I'll draw unto you. Our will works together with His will. So if you're determined to seek after God, now remember Deuteronomy makes it plain. This isn't a half-hearted. This is with all your heart, with all your soul. And so whenever we begin to make our way back, it has to be full. It has to be fully. But we have frailties, we have problems, we have our own hang-ups and flaws, and we're not perfect. So God is going to meet us halfway. Draw near to me, and I'll draw near to you. It's a meeting in the middle. That's why we have some Deuteronomy 10 and Deuteronomy 30. In one it says, circumcise your heart. And in another it says, and I will circumcise your heart. Well, which one is it? Well, we ought to be working on it, and He's going to help us.
So you make the effort, you're trying,
Yeah.
and He'll come and help you the rest of the way.
God, y'all, I
But
just
see-
keep getting the picture of Toby out in the yard in the dark and almost blind and deaf, and how he has to, in our yard, he's had a lot of obstacles. A lot of obstacles and vehicles and plants
So
and
getting,
stuff.
getting,
Yeah.
getting into this,
Dave's going, let's change the subject.
no, yeah. In Ezekiel,
We beat that
you're
dog to
reading,
death.
And it says, for I will take, I'm looking at these verbs,
Yeah.
and then later it says, and gather,
Yep.
and I will bring. So I'm
Yep.
looking up these words, and it's pretty cool. I will take, that actually could be referred to as in marriage. Do you take the, you know, it's not so much, grab and
Yeah,
jerk you
snatching.
out of or whatever, So, yeah.
It's a commitment.
No, that's a good point,
It's a
Dave, and
commitment.
I noticed those verbs too.
Yeah,
In fact,
yeah.
right before you said that, I just looked. I'm looking at that verse in Ezekiel 36. Lachak is to take. I will take you from the nations, and I will kivatz. I will gather you from the lands. Yeah, it's just repetition. Now, to your point about marriage, if you look at Hosea chapter 2, look at Hosea 2. I'll just show you this passage.
47. Lakak.
There you go.
See, I got to say all that.
There you go. Well, don't listen to that guy. He just pronounced it.
Hosea,
I'm trying to stop it. You won't shut up.
I'll just show you this.
oh, there goes Ross on
That's
top
me.
of
Here we
him.
go. Here we go. Just opened up a
It
can
said
of worms
Hosea
there.
chapter.
Hosea chapter 2, verse 18. Now, the verses may be different in English, but Hosea 2:18. And it will be on that day, says Jehovah, that you shall say Ishi, which is like my Lord, my husband, and shall no more say Baali, my master, for I will take away the names of the Baalim, the Baal. You know, we hear of Baal.
Yeah.
And they shall no more be mentioned by their name. And in that day I'll make a covenant for them with the wild beasts and the birds of the air and creeping things of the ground. I'll break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth. We could all use that at some point. Break that battle bow, right? And will make them lie down in safety. Listen here, Dave. I will betroth thee to me forever. I will betroth thee to me in righteousness, in judgment, in loyal love, and in mercy, and I will betroth thee to me in faithfulness, and you shall know Jehovah.
Wow.
So it is described as somewhat of a marriage. a union between God and his people. That image is very, very strong, and it's presented in numerous places in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah, it's like, and it's so, basically, I was looking at a lot of the comments this morning and then thinking in my own mind as you were talking, it's like, it's really, people are really concerned how this is actually gonna take place.
Yeah.
How this Exodus, or second Exodus, whatever,
Yep.
or how
Yeah.
this calling gonna,
Why-
how's this
why-
actually gonna happen?
No matter what you could
So-
think of,
somebody was
it's not
talking
gonna
about
hold a
the-
candle to
Oh, right.
what it really is gonna be
There
like.
was
you know.
comments about the continental divides and there's mountain ranges that you can actually walk to, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh gosh.
Pretty sure that the creator will work out the details.
Yeah,
You can fly.
Yeah.
you can fly.
Fly LL.
Yeah, LL.
That's dry ground.
Yeah.
Or,
Their
or,
hooves will be like flint, fire like flints.
ultimately it's gonna encompass the whole world, or earth anyway. So,
Yeah.
I know that goes against the land idea.
Well, and the
Holy
point
Land.
is that everyone's not going to be an Israelite.
That's right.
Yes, and going
You
to
could
the
be
land.
ambassadors.
And that's right. Yeah. So a lot of people think, well, I mean, you're talking about the tribes. You don't know. I mean, we don't know who's who, and that's true.
Right.
But that's why I always say I believe that whether a person is or is not does not preclude them from having a relationship with Jehovah.
That's right.
In fact, to Dave's point, Zechariah 14, these ambassadors, it says that every nation will send delegates
Yeah.
at least
Yeah,
once a
exactly.
year during Sukkot to Jerusalem to worship Jehovah of hosts. And the nation that doesn't send a delegate, then they're just not going to get rain. So you just make it easy on yourself. You want rain, you send a delegate to worship Jehovah.
And I don't normally go back to the other testament, the later testament.
Yeah.
Or, the book of Revelation basically has kind of a show of that.
It really
outside
does.
the gates, and they got people coming and going, and some people are allowed in, some people are, and
12 gates.
Yeah,
I always
yeah,
ask
it's like-
people, which gate are you going through?
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
If you're not one of those gates.
Do you know your gate number?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's the airport there.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got
that's
another
right.
gate there. They thought it
Well,
changed
you know,
it.
it's interesting because one of the things that, when I initially started, my search years ago, you start reading things like the book of Revelation, and anyone who reads the book of Revelation, or the Revelation of John as it's called, you're going to find in a good study Bible references to some of these passages
Yeah.
that point you back, and you're going to see clearly that these are pulling from prophecies in the Hebrew Bible. So I remember countless times years past when people would tell me they were doing a study on Revelation, but a lot of times they don't know Zechariah and Daniel and Ezekiel and Isaiah, and you can't grasp the prophetic, the redemptive scenario unless you understand Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Nahum, Micah. I mean, you need it. You got to know it.
And then you got these verbs I was talking about. I would take, and I will gather, and I will bring, and then the following verses, then will I sprinkle clean water upon you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's backwards from what we kind of think. Oh, God's going to clean me up, then He's going to call me.
Yeah.
No, he's gonna draw you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then clean.
Kind of like a magnet, you know how
So,
a magnet is.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the metal shavings, and how
Yeah.
the closer you bring the magnet,
Yeah.
the shavings all start to get together.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
that
They're
picture.
one with
I like
the
that picture,
magnet.
Mark.
Good
Find
image.
any cracks in your vessel.
That's right.
So you're right. This reminds me of a week or so ago. I was in a deli, and waiting in line, and there was this older gentleman in front of me, and the lady behind waiting on him. Somehow or another, we started talking. He started mentioning Bible scriptures, and he brought up something, and I said, "Yeah, shall not take away or add to." He says, "Yeah, that's Revelations." And it's
Yeah.
like he knew,
Yeah.
scripture, but he didn't. And I said, "Yeah, that's Deuteronomy too."
Yeah. That's right.
Knowledge without wisdom.
Yeah. So there we were having a little.
Well, I'm
Oh,
very
Bible study in the
I'm
deli.
very
You let him
excited. I'm very excited when I meet people who Christian or not, who are studying the words of their Bible, and they're seeking God with everything they have. And-
Following hard after
oh
God.
man, and you know, we have to be careful. I warn about this from time to time. We have to be careful and certainly never come across as arrogant or condescending.
That's right.
You know, none of us have it all figured out.
That's
I
right.
certainly don't. And we can study these things for a long time, but we're dealing with the creator of the universe and his plan. Who is it? Who among us can say, I've got it all figured out? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So we have to be patient and understand that these people are seeking God. And you know what? If they're seeking God with all their heart, they're going to find us. They're going to find God. They may not find us. And you know what's funny? Is some of these people who might be right now in a Pentecostal or a Baptist or a Methodist church or in a mosque somewhere, let's be honest, they might be seeking God with such intensity that I could meet them a year from now and they would surpass anything I've ever known.
Yeah.
So we have to be humble and not think, I've got it all figured out. God can take people from a place of a willing heart and bring them to great understanding in a
Believe
very
that.
short period
I
of
believe
time.
that.
So I never want to be one that points at somebody and goes, well, you're wrong
Well,
because your theology's wrong.
I mean, this Ezekiel thing backs that up, you know, after the verbs, and then he's gonna bring us into the land, then, you know, all this stuff is gonna go, you're gonna multiply and fruit of the tree, and says, then shall you remember your own evil ways and your doings that were not good.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that applies to what you're saying there.
absolutely.
You know, because we've seen it over and over and over again. We've done it. I've done it. You start looking at this Hebraic idea, and you get mad at Christianity at that point. You want to blast them and
Oh, yeah.
talk bad about them all the time. We're, hey,
Or you
might be
or you
God's
get
children.
or
Yeah.
you get heartbroken about
Sure.
having propagated the
yeah.
lies to children, you
Yeah.
know, and to
But
all the
mostly, I'm
people,
directing the
yeah.
idea that you know, people that
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
really blast Christianity or Christians out on the street and day to day. It's,
Yeah.
You just don't know
Yeah.
what I know.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah.
What's the old, there's an
there's
idea,
Your mom.
there's there's my mama.
Hey, Karen.
Yeah, it's the idea is that we have to recognize that God is so big and we're so not, right? And we have to look at where did we start this journey? You know, where was it that we began?
Right.
Look, I meet a lot of people who, frankly, are just in this movement, and they are hurt. And they're hurtful. It's okay to be hurt. We'll get over hurts. You'll get over a boo boo. I'm not going to lie to you. You will. But to then turn that to hurt other people is not acceptable.
No.
Not acceptable. And to make fun of and ridicule someone's place, not your job. You butt the hell out. Look, let me show you one other pet. Look at Ezekiel 34. Ezekiel 34, I go to this sometimes, and I read it to keep me on my toes.
To the shepherds. Yeah.
Boy, look.
Man.
Look, I'm going to tell you what, if you ever get a little bit of boastfulness and poke your chest out and think you go read Ezekiel 34, and if this doesn't put you back in place, I read this often because I want to make sure I never forget. But Jehovah is extremely upset at the shepherds.
Yep.
And he's very, very harsh on what they've done wrong. Like, you haven't gone to seek out the hurt and the lame, and I'm paraphrasing, but you get the point. It's like, can you imagine a shepherd and you have, you know, most of your sheep are in the pen and they're safe, but there's a few of them that are out there in the wild, and you have beasts out there, John. Beasts that could eat them.
Wolves.
Yeah, their wolves are out there. And look, and there are other people who might steal the sheep. There are traps, there are holes in the ground. Are you going to go sleep tonight? You're just going to relax. You're not going to go look for those? See, a lot of people get in the pen, and then they forget the poor sheep that are out there wandering on the mountains and the hills. Or what if a sheep falls in a ditch? Are you going to say, I'll come back and get that one later. It's not going anywhere. He's hurt. Well, so I read through this, and the problem is that they were scattered because no one cared, basically. This
None
is
did search or seek after it.
no one searched for them, and no one took care of those that needed it. And then look at this. Now, I wanted to get to this part because it applies to the people. Let's see. Okay. Now, verse 17. Now Jehovah's going to talk to the sheep. See, before he talked to the religious leaders, now we can all get on that bandwagon and make fun
Yeah.
of other
Yeah.
preachers
Point,
and
good
rabbis,
point.
and yeah, that's the teachers did that. I'm not a teacher. But look, now he's going to talk to the sheep. Listen to this, verse 17, Ezekiel 34. As for you, O my flock, thus says Adonai Jehovah, behold, I will judge between one lamb and another, the rams and the he-goats. Is it so small a thing to you that you've eaten up the good pasture, but you must also tread down with your feet the residue of your pasture lands? And to have drunk of the clear waters, you must foul the residue with your feet? And as for my sheep, they eat that which you've trodden with your feet, and they drink that which you've fouled with your feet. Therefore, thus says Adonai Jehovah to them, behold, I will judge between the fat cattle and the lean cattle, because you've thrust with side and with shoulder, and pushed all the weak ones with your horns, till you scattered them abroad. Now, this is pretty strong. He says, look, it's enough. You got good pasture. Now you're going to take your filthy little feet and mud up the clean pasture ground so the next ones can't eat. And not only that, you drank clear water. And now you're going to foul that water so the next guys can't drink. And if that's not enough,
Shoulder
you
'em out
take
the
your
way.
shoulders and your horns and you butt them out.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, here's what that's saying. When people are brought to the truth, or let's say not the truth, but truth, and they experience the wonderful salvation of Jehovah and his beautiful ways, and then they just learned this last month, and they're going to walk in the grass with their little filthy feet and smuck up the water. This is bad. I mean, this is what gets me. Facebook and all these other, whenever you see somebody who has got the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help them God, and they become so holy, so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good, and they begin to make fun of the other sheep that are just learning, God help them. God help that person. I just tell people, you got to read Ezekiel 34. Look, I've been doing this a long time, and I have made plenty of mistakes, and I've hurt people. I know I've hurt people, but I don't intend to anymore.
Right. And it's I'm not going to say it's a daily battle, but I still struggle with that. I mean, I know what you're talking about. It occasionally crops up. It crops up, and you got to nip it.
You got to nip it. Yep, that's right.
You got to stop it.
Because look, here's the thing. I know that there's some people now who are even popular teachers in the Torah faith movement. And let's say they've been doing this for 10 years. And I'm making this up. I don't have anybody in my mind. But let's say they're picking on somebody who's in a Baptist church right now whose their theology is wrong. I want to look at them and say, 10 years ago, you were singing from the same hymnal. 10 years ago. And now you're so holy and righteous that you can make fun of him or her. Man, that's crazy.
Right.
So we have to be careful. Look, this restoration that we're talking about here and the ultimate redemption of God that's going to be from sea to shining sea involves, it's going to be educational for all of us.
Right.
None of us are going to get there, and I'm not going to hear Jehovah say, come up here with me, Ross. You were the only person who had it all figured out. Now you're going to help me, and we're going to tell everybody where they're wrong. I imagine that it's going to be for me like it is everyone else. I think we're going to hear things like, this you got right. This you could have improved on. This you really messed up on. I think we're all going to get that. But the goal is that we minimize the harm. You know, one of my sons is a doctor, and that Hippocratic oath, is it
Yeah,
called?
yeah.
I think it's Hippocratic. not
Hippocratic.
hypocritic.
Yeah, we don't be
that's a joke.
hypocrites.
I say-
No, but the
Dr.
Hippocratic
Hippocratic,
oath
yeah.
is that you not only
Yeah.
not only are you supposed to heal and to help, but you're supposed to never do
no
harm,
That's right.
right?
Do no harm.
First, do no harm.
So that's what we have to do. We have to focus on two aspects to our life. One is to help. Always help. Help as much as you can help. And when you can't help, don't harm. Or if you don't help, don't harm. You know, that's a key point, I think, for all of us. We've got to figure this piece out.
Sometimes you don't have to do anything to help. In other words, I've noticed, and I'm not trying to beat any drums here, I've just in reflection, I've noticed that in the time frame since making a change in my life,
Yeah,
when I started reading the scriptures and got into it and said, oh, you know, I'm not going to make any friends here with wives out there, but, you know, having been married a long time, I'm used to going, whoop, wrong again. So,
for you, you're saying
Yeah,
you're
for
wrong.
me.
Yeah,
Wrong-
okay,
wrong
I was just
again.
clarifying.
It's
Wrong
become
again.
second nature.
second name, wrong again, no problem.
Yep.
So you get, you get better about that. So there are a lot of things you find out, no, I wasn't doing that right. And so you start learning, you start doing. And other people that aren't making that effort to try and get there, that goes back to something you said, don't want to be like those people. When you're around, and it may not necessarily ever come to fruition, but when you're around folks, and all of a sudden you have the courage to go, well, I don't eat that, and
Yeah.
why is he? Well, you explain, and this is not how I worship or how I practice, and this is why we do this, and then you're making this change, and then all of a sudden people are looking at you differently. And in their mind, they're questioning.
Yeah,
And people that don't read the Bible have heard certain verses or whatever. They say things, and you go, "Well, that's not exactly the way that says. That's not how it says."
yeah.
And that's not trying to be ugly. It's just saying this is what the Scripture actually says. And so you notice that people are starting to be interested,
Yeah.
and at least are somewhat quiet.
People have different
It's different.
approaches. Yeah, people have different approaches, and we ought to really be experts, be ambassadors for this message. And here's some things I've learned over time. One time I took a parenting course years ago. I listened to a tape series or something. And this was this particular person's view. There was a way, like, let's say child one comes up and says, "Can I have a cookie?" And it's time for bed. They've already brushed their teeth. He says, now this is just his take. You can respond a couple of ways. You can say, "No, you're going to bed. You already brushed your teeth. You can't have a cookie." Well, that's the truth. You don't intend to give them a cookie. You're being honest. No, you can't have. Go to bed. Another approach would be to say, "Absolutely, you can have a cookie tomorrow, not tonight because you've already brushed your teeth." So you give them a positive. Yes, absolutely. But, and it's just a different approach. So there's a way to say all of these things. Like if somebody says, this particular passage points to this, this, and this, I try to say it like this. I don't understand it that way. I've understood it this way. Help me understand what you're looking at there. Let me see. Show me what you're... So it's not so much, I'm right, you're wrong. It's, I might need you to help me see that. It's subtle. It's subtle, but that's a very effective tool.
And then it's the truth, It's,
Yeah.
it's not that bad of a deal to brush your teeth really good and then eat a cookie. It's
Yeah,
not that
and you
bad.
can brush your teeth
'Cause
again. That's
Well,
right.
I mean, you don't even have to do that.
Yeah.
Because part of the problem is the mixing of the
So yeah,
the cookie and
I
the
actually
stuff.
saw that in real life. There was a lady in the grocery line. You know how they put all the candy and everything right there at
Oh,
the
yeah.
checkout?
purposely.
Well,
Oh, yes.
her kid was
This-
going,
Yeah.
mommy, I want this. And finally she looked at him and said, no, but thanks for asking.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah,
And I was like, wow, I hadn't heard that one before.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Could
your
you
point
answer
is that you
Jerry's
just be
question,
mean,
though?
or you can be,
Silent.
Yeah.
Sometimes. you
Yeah,
say things
sometimes
like, "Just
silence
keep
is
Yeah,
golden.
quiet,
Yeah,
yes.
sometimes silence is
Yeah,
golden.
about the
I know I've
third
been
day.
in that situation.
Yeah, I was
Shut
interested
up.
about that too.
Yeah,
I think I know where you're coming
the
from. but-
passage I mentioned today in the class is from Hosea. Remember, Hosea is a prophet to the northern tribes, and so in Hosea 6. Now, by the way, I didn't start at the white space. You would have to back up a little bit, but.
Third day.
Let's see where to begin. Okay, let's just start at verse 14. Hosea 5, verse 14. For I will be to Ephraim as a lion and as a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I, will tear and go away. This is Jehovah speaking. I will take away, and there will be none to deliver. I will go and return to my place, whatever that means, till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me. Now remember in Jeremiah 30, the time of Jacob's trouble. Trouble is going to cause you to turn to God. I'm sorry. That's the way it's got to be. In their affliction, they'll seek me, saying, here's what they're going to say in their affliction. Come and let us return to Jehovah, for he has torn, he did the tearing, and he will heal us. He has smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up and will live in his presence.
Wow.
Now, this is the only reference in all the Hebrew Bible where it talks about, this is Israel speaking, talking about being raised and living on the third day. Now, remember, Ezekiel 37 describes the scene of death. Their bones. He's talking about a resurrection. So what we get is that Israel will be in the grave, which Ezekiel 37 says means the nations. You're going to be scattered. Your bones are scattered. Amos, again, I'll scatter them through the nations and so forth. He says, I'm going to cause you to come out of your graves and bring you back to the land, and you'll live in my sight. So by marrying these two together, and the concepts that I talked about, Israel, Ephraim is called God's son, his firstborn. Israel dies, is scattered among the nations, in the grave, so to speak. And after 2 days, a day is as 1,000 years, and on the third day, he will raise them up. So what I'm telling you is that the Hebrew Bible says that the Son of God is dead for 3 days and rises on the third day. That's what it's saying, basically. Now, I know people are going, oh, man, I'm just saying. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So what we have to think about is, when did the tribes get scattered among the nations? You know, if you go back and do the math, it's pretty interesting. You know, you start looking at these things, all of this is very, very interesting because it points to the resurgence, if you will, the standing up back to life of this great army known as all the house of Israel.
And you missed, like the verse 3 in this 6:3, it answers that, return unto me and I'll return unto you.
Yep.
Let us pursue obedience to Jehovah, and we shall become obedient.
Yep.
Let's pursue it, and then we'll become it.
Yep. Yeah, it's there's a both parties.
Build it,
Fake
you
it
build
till
it,
you
they'll
make it.
come. You build it, they'll come.
No,
Yeah,
no, just turn
I know
your
what
you're-
heart,
Yeah, yeah.
turn
Yeah.
your
I
attention,
know
turn
what you're
your,
saying, Sharon.
yeah. Yeah.
it's a walk. You know, it's a walk. You begin to walk towards Jehovah, and He will begin to come to you, and the two together bring us to the reunion. Remember today's story. The reunion of the tribes is the great prophetic event. But an even greater reunion is when that group is reunited with the Father. And see, that is the main goal. The ultimate goal is not the regathering of the tribes. United Israel brings to a world union, and that world union is when Jehovah will be king over all the earth. His name, he will be one and his name one.
Amen,
Zechariah 14:9. And then all nations will flow to Jerusalem. Isaiah chapter 2, Micah chapter 4. Look, the prophets paint this beautiful picture, and I try to tell people, study, learn, because this contains the blueprint of life. Like, we ought to all be immersing ourselves in these texts, not forgetting that we also have to live a life that's worthy of holiness and righteousness and justice. But we have to know the plan. This is the plan. Like, people sometimes ask me, do you ever, what else do you do? That's pretty much it. Because I want to know. I want to know, and especially because I stand up and give an opinion. I don't want to give an opinion without having spent some time looking. Again, I don't know nearly all of this. But we have to be committed to understanding God's plan and purpose.
Anita, sweet, I was gonna bring up the same question. So am I wrong, or is this the third day where Christianity gets the idea? I'm sure the
Duh.
Jesus,
Well,
yeah,
no,
and pours over into the New Testament.
I think perhaps maybe the historical Jesus appealed to this, in his thinking or his understanding. It's quite brilliant. And I think that could be where these ideas underlying the text, but most people within Christianity don't make that connection, right? Because they don't know the
They
Hebrew
don't know
Bible.
the Hebrew Bible, yeah, exactly.
A lot of times, in fact, even the Gospels will associate the 3 days and 3 nights with the story of Jonah, and they get into, well, the math doesn't quite work and it's quite difficult, and people get into debates and fight. I mean, people fight over everything, but that's one of the things they fight over. But the point being that this is a story that is exclusive to the Hebrew Bible. If you want to know who God's son is, it's clearly the name is given. It's Israel. Israel's God's son. The kings are sometimes referred to as God's son. But generally, you got Exodus 4, verse 22 and 23. Let my son go. God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh this. And then you've got Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 8. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse, I think, 21. You've got several Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. Out of Egypt I called my son. So you get this idea that Israel's God's son. Here you have Israel saying that God has smitten them and struck them and torn them, and then in 3 days they'll rise and live. You got Ezekiel 37 that says the graves are the nations. So,
The historical Jesus aside,
yeah.
I don't think the relationship or these two stories being as close there, I don't think that was an accident. I mean, I
no.
think,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's coming from
the
somewhere.
people that wrote and crafted the words you're talking
Yeah,
about,
the New Testament.
they knew the Hebrew Bible.
Yep.
They-
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and when we look at ancient documents, look, I like, I spend most of my time in the Tanakh. But the Dead Sea Scroll people, for instance, took the Hebrew Bible and applied the things going on around them to these texts. The first Christians, the formative church, whatever you want to call it, took the things going on around them and tried to find those events here.
Yeah.
We, today, sitting around this table and listening online, are looking at the world around us and trying to find it here. It's an ever-living document. It is the blueprint, and at some point, all the rehearsals become reality. It's like this is an ancient script. Imagine a big play, a script that's written thousands of years ago, and it's describing events that haven't yet taken place to some parts of it. But when they happen, you'll be able to look at this and read it like the daily news. I mean, really. I mean, I think it's going to be very interesting.
I think those are more, in many aspects, big picture. There's not a lot of specific details in there on things, how it gets done. It's a bigger picture. In other words, this is going to happen, there's going to be but it doesn't say how that's going to happen. You know, at some point in time, things,
We just
as
unfold.
discussed today, things are going to have to get worse before they get better.
Yeah.
We don't know what that actually is going to look like.
Yeah.
Worse or the better. You know, we know what the ultimate situation is. We know some things that are going to happen, but we don't know all the details. You know, I guess, you know, if God told us all the details, then we'd be bored. But I don't know.
But again,
It'd have some surprises.
so there is truth in what you just said, but there's also a good bit of detail. Like, for instance, if the way I do it, you've come up and seen my dry erase board when I'm working through some of these things. I'll write down key phrases, say in Ezekiel 34, and think about those words and phrases in Jeremiah 30, and then think of those similar phrases in Hosea. And sometimes I'll do it on the board or I'll do it on paper where I can see that I'm making my points from the words in connection with the words and on the basis of the words. So where one talks about, and I will raise up David for them, that's used 4 times in the Hebrew Bible. So if I take those 4 passages and I put them in columns, and I do this all the time, then I find other details. Let's say Hosea 3 only brings up 2 details. Jeremiah 30 mentions one of those details and gives me 5 more. You see how I can now pull that together? And then I take column 3. I do this all day because what it does is, you're right, in some instances you get very little detail, and in other places you get a lot of detail. So you have to marry the appropriate text together.
But, you know, it's like things can look like they're coming together, but in the master plan, if there's, I'm guessing here, because if there's one like part of the detail that's missing hasn't evolved yet,
Yep.
then that doesn't come together. In other words, we can
Yeah.
easily overlook something. Some detail that doesn't seem critical to us that's, you know, critical in God's plan.
Yep.
And then at some point in time that happens, you go, oh, well,
We
there
weren't
it
there
is.
yet.
Yeah, we weren't there yet.
Right.
Hey, I'll give you a good example. Dave's going to like this because he's used it on me a few times. He's
Good
quoted
example
this.
on that is Joseph, Ephraim, all that, we didn't know until all of a sudden it just popped up.
That's right. That's right.
And look at us now.
Yeah. Now we
See
in
what you
deep.
did? See what you did?
And deep with what that is, I mean, like John was saying, there may be more. We
Oh,
haven't
no
found it yet.
doubt.
Oh, no
We
doubt.
don't know what we don't know.
That's right. Look at Jeremiah 31, 31 through 34. In the Hebrew, it's verse 30. This is about the new covenant. So a lot of people believe that we're in the new covenant now. So let's look at what the text says about the new covenant, and you answer, are we there yet? You ever go on a long trip and kids go, hey, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Look, think that while I read this. Behold, days are coming, Jeremiah 31:31. says Jehovah, when I'll make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Notice who it's made with. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband to them, says Jehovah. But this will be the new covenant that I'll make with the house of Israel after those days, says Jehovah. I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts. And people can go, yep, he did that for me. All right, stay with me. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Jehovah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, says Jehovah. Has that happened yet?
To the least of them?
Well, I mean, it says
No.
you won't need
No.
a teacher anymore.
Well,
I don't think we're there yet.
Everybody's going to know. Are we there yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. For I will forgive their iniquity and remember their sin no more. So, but we can see that some of these prophecies don't unfold in an instant. So it could be that we begin to enter the stages of fulfillment, and it's here and not yet.
I think that the point that I'd like to make is that the snapping of the fingers is that's where you kind of have to have what you believe. Does it happen quickly, or does it happen over a long
Yeah.
time?
Well, and what part? In other words,
Right.
there are different levels to everything.
Right.
And especially,
Different phases, yeah.
well,
too.
no, just different levels, not necessarily phases. There are
Okay.
phases, but there are also levels. In other words, you have the personal level, which is you,
Okay.
and how the Creator's working in your life. But when Ross reads, and it says, and Ephraim and Judah will come together, well, those are two nations, if you will. That's not one person, that's two
Right.
nations of people.
Yeah.
And so, that's a lot of people. That's a big picture.
Mm-hmm.
I can guess what some of that is.
Yeah.
In other words, right now, and if you really want to do the modern things about, we see things about, in the world today, we know who Judah is, right? They're sitting in Israel.
A lot of them.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
They're sitting in Israel. Well, where's Ephraim? Don't know. The only thing we do know is Judah's best friend in the world is sitting over here.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you start,
Yeah.
and that's a nation. It's not a person, it's a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know. I'm just speculating, just looking.
Yeah, a lot of people do make associations with, where did the tribes end up in the majority? And some look on a national level. Yair Davidi is one. I tend to think it could be dominant, predominantly, like consisting of, but it's also a mixing pot. So
Yeah.
they're scattered. And I think some
Scattered,
of these
yes.
ideas turn into, whether intentional or not, turn into sort of racist ideologies. We have to be careful. We have
Absolutely.
black Hebrews that are racist, and we have white Israelites that are
Yeah,
racist too.
absolutely.
So we have to be careful. But because I think in God's providence, the way that it happened and the way the prophets describe it is they will be so separate, so scattered. Now you're talking about millions and millions of people, so you're going to have pockets, but at the same time, remember it's red and yellow, black and white. You're not going to be able to look at them and go.
Well, that's what's in Israel today, and that's
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
also in many parts of the world today,
Yep, that's right.
particularly in this country.
Yep. Well, it has been a long day so far, and
But fun.
but fun and wonderful, and it's always good to get together and discuss these things.
and we'll even let Pam sneak in on us.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Welcome, Pam.
Yeah, better late than
Don't draw
never.
attention to it.
No, not at all.
That's right.
Overslept this morning. Huh?
I was online with y'all.
Yes,
Oh,
she was. You
okay.
didn't see her? I almost said something. I'm sorry I didn't say something, but I saw you.
So just make sure that as we study these things that we always stay humble and think about, hey, people are coming in every day, and they're waking up. Even now, as I speak, someone somewhere is waking up, and they're not where you are. Be kind, be helpful, be very, very helpful, and by all means, never, ever, ever hurt, because that's what we need to focus on. If we find ourselves not in tune with Ezekiel 34, by the way, just think about that over the next week. Read Ezekiel 34 for homework.
Sometimes the doctors do have to take that scab off. It might hurt.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah.
It
So
might.
some of this stuff could hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
it's harm.
Yeah.
And if you think you're there and somebody else is behind you, just remember, there's always somebody in front of you too.
Yeah, there's always
Somebody
that's right.
knows more than you know.
So be sure and do everything in your power to be, open and helpful. That's the main point.
And join us Wednesday night.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Wednesday
yeah.
night. One more time. Wednesday night, 6 to 8 at Temple Sinai Synagogue. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Facebook and YouTube and Temple Sinai. If you're local,
6 o'clock.
if you're
Yeah,
local,
make sure, 'cause I got to be
6
here.
o'clock. Yeah. If you're local, be here if you can.
Especially
if
you.
can't
You're running
be
the
here,
camera.
You can watch it. You can watch it online. So 6 to 8, Wednesday,
6 to 8,
January the 8th. Hanok Young, the courage to be blessed. We'll see you Wednesday night. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.
Shabbat
Shalom, y'all.
shalom, Shabbat.
Good deal. Good deal.
Oh.
thanks to